may know, or may not know, I like making figures for my GN15 model railroad. The model railroad is scaled at 1/24th scale, and I use these tools to make my own figures. I like to make my own figures because I like to shape them with characteristics and movements that it's not easy for me to buy. Now, my figures may not look 100% realistic. They may be a little rough around the edges, but they do give my model railroad a certain character that I enjoy. So let's go over the tools that I use. I use this wire for the armature for the figure. I use Super Sculpey as firm as my clay of choice. Mine comes in gray. I also have these tools to carve them. I have this wire tool. It's basically a brass rod inside of a wooden handle. Then I have these former paint brushes that I have shaped into carving tools. Here's one that's pointed. Here's a far larger one, and this one. This is my most commonly used tool. Basically, I took an old brush, shaped it to the shape that I wanted, and then covered it with an acrylic or some kind of clear paint so that it would be durable and smooth. Here's a larger tool. It's a little larger than the previous one. I rarely use this. And then, freely available on my blog, and I'll provide a link in the description, is this 3D printed template. I use it to shape the figure. So this is my standard size. I use this template so that my figures they're going to be uniform in size. So the idea is to shape the rough shapes of the clay and fit it into the cavities, just to get started. Well, without further ado, let's get cracking. So, starting with the head, you can shape the clay until it fits into the slot for the head. Then, using your tool, make an indent for the eyes towards the upper part of the head shape. Next thing I do is I form the bridge of the nose, usually at the middle of the head shape. That'll give you a broad nose that'll have to be narrowed. So I have refined the shape of the nose by narrowing the bridge of the nose here lifting the clay so that the nose becomes a little bit more prominent. Moving the eye socket back. You could use the end of the brush, the tool. So it's a little more definition. Make sure that your forehead remains in shape. Next thing is you could do is you can use this tool with the rod to begin the shape of the mouth that we will later refine. I've placed the head in the template. The next step I will do is to cut wire and put a wire rod into the head and begin baking it. I will then, after baking it, go in and put in the eyeballs, do some further refinements. I might add the ears now, since they tend to be fragile, and I'd like to make this part of the first baking. So the way I do the ears is I make these super small balls of clay. Probably even a little smaller than that, but we can try it. And in line with the ear and the eyes and the nose, you press the ball into position and squish. Squish. This is just to get it in position. We're not worrying about final shape yet. We will in a moment. But the first thing to do is to get it in position and to adhere. Go in the back, press some of the clay into the head so that it will grab. Go back. Then take your wire tool. Make a little hole. And you got an ear. Make the wire slightly longer than the template. Extra is fine because you can cut it later. I am going to make the head swivel, so my figure making will be slightly modified than my typical non-moving sculpted figure, but it's essentially very simple. Try to straighten it out as best you can. It's not that critical. And then you just shove it into the head and towards the center. Try to get it as much of it in without poking through the top, although if you do poke through the top, you will be putting hair on top of this figure at some point, so not a worry. A note about faces. You don't want to make a lot of creases and marks on the face if you're trying to model a younger person. So try to smooth it out as best you can. You can always come back later and use sandpaper, emery board. Now it's kind of hard to do this with the camera in front of your face, and you can't even see your hands, but this is the idea. Try to be as smooth as possible if it's supposed to be a younger person. Of course, if it's an older person, you can allow some definition there, but don't exaggerate it. Okay, here's the head out of oven. I put it in the oven for 15 minutes at 275 degrees. It's not much yet, but it's coming along. Next, I'll add the eyeballs and the hair, and because the hair is going to be under a hat, I'm going to make the hair as thin as possible. So I've flattened this piece. You can use like a bottle to flatten it. You wrap it around first. Yes, your ears are going to get covered, but you press it down, and then you're going to use your metal tool to carve away the hair, and try to keep the part that the hat is going to be under as thin as possible. You just want it to hold, but you don't want to occupy a lot, because if you do have too much hair on the top, it will not look natural. So you got the little tool here, and you can carve away. Just move it away like that. And now, if this is a man, so I'm going to remove more away from the ears. I might want to add a sideburn. You can start carving away hair. Depends on how much hair this person has. But you can go straight down. Depending if this person is somebody that cares about their hair, it'll be fairly organized. But if it's like somebody that works outside, they might have it wind blown, so the hair texture might go in different directions. The next step is adding eyeballs. So I make super tiny balls and press it into the eye socket. Not always the easiest thing, but that then gets shaped. Now, while you're doing this work, you may be undoing your hair, so the work that you've done on the hair, so you're going to have to go back and fix any clay that got smushed. Okay, so this eye on the left of your screen is in better shape. This one needs to be pushed down some more. One thing is you don't want it to pop out. And the other thing is that you need it to look like upper and lower eyelids. At you, then press that. Okay. Okay, I've added the cap that I have to trim, and also texture. So first thing is remove some of this material. Use this tool to puff it out. Okay. Using a brush handle, let's give it some indentation. There we go. I'm just going to fix the back there. The body is formed by a ball of clay that is in the general shape of this area. This area includes the arms. This is the total length of the arms plus the hand. This mark here is about where the waist should go. So I formed the basic lump, and I've added the arms, and next I will add the legs. And after adding the legs, I will add the legs and the feet. I will then start forming the clothes. Now, the head on this model is going to move, and it's a simple matter of pressing the wire through the soft clay, and then so I formed the heads with this extra neck, so it'll swivel inside a cavity in the body. Now, the wire slipped out of this one. To start forming the legs and the pants, I make an approximate shape, and because I need this to swivel the head, I'm going to run the leg through the wire and join it here and start shaping it preliminarily to the body until it's well joined. And that's just spreading the clay as much as you can to the body, and then smoothing it. You can smooth it with a brush, which is preferred, or with fingers. But because I'm going to put a layer of clothing after this, I'm not going to concern myself too much with the finish at this stage. The finish will be better at the final stages when I'm laying thin layers of clay to form the clothing. So something like this. Okay, the legs have been cooked, and again, these are the basic shapes of the legs. This is not the final appearance of the legs. As you can tell, the arms were broken off because I needed access to the side of the body to better proportion the legs. I will glue these arms back on after I am done with the baking of the shoes and getting to the step of the clothing. So the shoe is basically a ball that's flattened and roughly shaped in the form of a little wedge for a shoe, and then the soft clay is pierced and moved to the leg, the bottom of the leg. First thing I do is roughly shape it, take my tool and combine it with the baked leg. Again, because I'm adding clothes to this, there will be a pair of trousers, legs, pants that will go over this, and it won't look like the shoe is glued to the pants. Okay. Making hands is very tricky for me. I don't think I am really good at it, but I keep trying. This is my latest attempt. I'm going to show you how I made it. Again, I start off with a little ball and I squish it a little and kind of a flat little glove form. And then I add it to the hand. First, making sure I understand how this arm fits so that I have the hand in the correct position. So put the glove on, squish it onto the arm. Thumbs go in towards the body. So that's one thing you got to keep in mind. Make sure your thumb is in the right place. So your hand, it's got this kind of long shape and your thumb comes out here. So the first thing I do is I take an X-Acto knife, try to locate the thumb. Then I lightly scribe in the rest of the fingers. Don't go all the way through. make 4 fingers. And then I take the previously made thumb and I separate it from the hand. That's my hand. Of course, I'll put a sleeve over this. Next step is to take some clay and put a rolling pin or a bottle on it to make it as thin as possible. And then cut it into a shape that you need for, say, for example, the pants would be maybe just the lower part to make a cuff. So you would drape it in position so that you have it naturally falling on the shoe and bunching up at the back. Just observe reference photos on the internet to see what clothing in the style of your era that you're trying to replicate. If it's modern, they'll probably not even reach the ankles, but I am modeling the 1930s. The pants would actually fall on the shoe. So it's a simple matter of them smoothing out the piece. Just like the pants, I now go over the entire figure and start adding thin material to literally dress the model. Here I am doing the collar, using a brush to smooth it. It's probably better to use a more short bristled, soft brush than the long bristle that I use here. But the idea is to smooth it out. A brush is probably better than a finger because a finger will probably leave fingerprints, and a brush will probably smooth it out a lot better. Now go over the entire figure, adding all the details you can, like the collar, shirt, adding material to the pants so that all the rough trimming that you did can be covered up by clay cloth and baked on. Do it in stages so that as you do one part, you're not smashing the details with your fingers. I hope you liked this tutorial on making figures. I certainly enjoyed it. It brings life to my model railroad every time I add a figure. Thank you for visiting the little fishing village of Amalfitano. Please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Until next time, arrivederci.